What I am going to share with you is the moment a world leader was left speechless by a single, forbidden question. My friends, truth seekers, and fellow citizens of our global community, this encounter did not happen on a public stage, but behind closed doors, where the polished performances end and raw reality begins. Let me transport you to that setting. It was a high-level international dialogue, one of those gatherings where the powerful discuss the future of nations they often do not truly understand. The atmosphere was thick with diplomatic pleasantries and rehearsed statements about cooperation in progress, the usual narratives we are conditioned to accept. A prominent Western statesman, a former president, was the guest of honor, leveraging his global profile to position himself as a bridge between civilizations. I was there, a voice for a different perspective, one that challenges the very foundations of the systems we are told to trust. The proceedings were as expected. Speaker after speaker offered variations on the same theme, promoting models of development that have consistently failed to deliver genuine sovereignty or prosperity. The statesman spoke with his characteristic eloquence, a skill that can make systemic domination sound like a generous partnership. He talked of his cross-cultural experiences, his apparent grasp of the Eastern world, and his desire to foster mutual understanding. And that is when a conviction ignited within me. I have observed for years how the architects of the global order speak of spiritual traditions. They reference them when seeking alliances, when needing resources, or when attempting to legitimize intervention. They become sudden experts on faith when it serves a strategic purpose, and vocal critics when that becomes more convenient. This leader, in particular, had mastered this duality. During his tenure, he would deliver moving speeches in ancient capitals, presenting himself as an ally, all while the machinery of war continued its relentless operation in numerous countries under his authority. After the main event, there was a more intimate, off-the-record discussion. The mood was meant to be candid. He was fielding queries, surrounded by attendees who largely echoed his viewpoints, anxious to remain in the good graces of established power structures. I observed. I waited. I listened to a series of polite, non-confrontational inquiries designed to elicit further platitude. And then I saw my opening. The facilitator seemed uncertain. I was not on the prearranged list. These forums are typically carefully managed, but I do not believe truth should require an invitation. The facilitator paused, but the statesman, to his credit, gestured for me to go ahead. I stood. The room grew still. Some recognized me as the representative who speaks openly about economic sovereignty and the need for fundamental change, not superficial adjustment. Others were about to learn. Sir, I began, you have spoken today about your appreciation for Eastern wisdom, about your time abroad, about your respect for its intellectual and spiritual contributions. You have portrayed yourself as a figure who reconciles differing worlds. He nodded, with that familiar, confident smile, prepared to expand on his cosmopolitan outlook. I have one question for you, I continued. It is a direct question, a matter of principle. If you truly comprehend this tradition as you suggest, the answer should be straightforward. The silence became profound. You could feel the anticipation thickening the air. Attendees began to shift in their seats. They sensed a challenge was coming. Within this ethical system, I stated, there exists a profound prohibition called Riba. It is explicitly and repeatedly condemned in its core texts. The divine warning is severe. Those who engage in it are declared to be in a state of war with the sacred. It is among the most serious moral transgressions. It is among the most serious moral transgressions. Sir, can you explain to everyone here what Riba is? Why is it considered so fundamentally wrong? And how does the international economic model you helped champion relate to this ancient prohibition? I returned to my seat. The quiet lingered, becoming heavy and revealing. The smile on the statesman's face remained, but the light in his eyes shifted. He started to respond, then stopped. He began again, speaking about the intricacies of modern finance, the need to adapt old principles to new realities, the diversity of scholarly opinion. But he never provided the answer. He never defined the term. He never acknowledged what Riba truly represents. Interest usury, the core engine of the Western financial architecture, the very mechanism that has economically subjugated global populations for generations. He never clarified why, if he genuinely respected this wisdom, he spent years leading and upholding a global economic structure built entirely upon what it deems a cardinal sin. The silence of power reveals its greatest fear, the truth. My friends, allow me to explain what Riba is, since he would not or could not. Riba is the act of generating wealth from wealth itself, without productive enterprise, without creating anything of tangible value for society. It is the instrument that allows capital to beget more capital, inevitably enriching the holder and impoverishing the debtor. It is the exploitative device that forges chains from debt and transforms entire countries into servants to capital controllers. The textual evidence is unequivocal. It states that those who devour usury cannot rise except as one rises who is touched by madness. That is because they claim trade is like usury, but the divine has permitted trade and forbidden usury. The warning could not be more stark. If you do not desist, then be informed of a war from the sacred and its messenger. These are not casual instructions. This is not a minor issue. This is central to an ethical economic vision, to a conception of justice, to a worldview of how human societies should interact. And yet the entire global monetary system, the international institutions that lend to nations, the funds that impose policy conditionalities, the commercial banks that ensnare individuals in debt, the speculative firms that extract wealth, all of it operates on riba. All of it operates on interest. All of it is constructed upon the very practice that is explicitly forbidden. When this leader assumed power, he faced a critical juncture. Following a major financial collapse, when the predatory and unstable nature of the interest-based model was laid bare, he had an opportunity to advocate for foundational change. Instead, he rescued the institutions. He fortified the system. He guaranteed that those who had profited immensely from riba, whose avarice had triggered a worldwide recession, faced no meaningful reckoning. Meanwhile, common people everywhere bore the cost. And now he appears on the global stage speaking of mutual respect and development, while endorsing the very framework that this ethical system fundamentally rejects. This is the reason he could not answer. Not necessarily from ignorance, though his knowledge may indeed have been superficial despite his claims, but because an honest reply would force him to confront an irreconcilable contradiction. They instruct us to assimilate into the global economy. They demand we liberalize our markets, sell our national assets, accept burdensome loans, and mold our societies around the financial architecture they have built. And when we buckle under unsustainable debt, when our countries remain in perpetual poverty due to compound interest piling up over decades, they blame our governance, our corruption, our need for their supervision. What they never admit is that the system they insist we join is inherently unjust. It is riba. It is forbidden. And this is not just the single tradition's view. Usury has been denounced across religious and philosophical lines for millennia by thinkers who recognize that making money for money, without productive labor, inevitably breeds exploitation and profound inequality. My friends, I am not here to deliver a theological discourse. I am a public servant, but I know injustice when I encounter it, and I know duplicity when I hear it. This leader could not answer my question because to do so would compel him to pick a side. Either the ethical teaching is correct about riba, meaning the entire global financial system is immoral and his leadership was spent preserving exploitation, or the teaching is incorrect, meaning his speeches about respect were merely political performance. He could not choose, so he offered nothing meaningful. He evaded. He spoke in abstractions. He progressed to the next question as soon as possible, but in that fleeting moment, I saw it. The facade faltered. He understood the query. He grasped the ramifications, and he recognized he had no honest response. After the session, a few other attendees approached me. Some were furious. How could I confront a former head of state? How could I risk alienating powerful interests? These are individuals who have become accustomed to their subordinate role, who define achievement by how effectively they cater to external powers rather than their own populace. But others found me later, away from the official record. They clasped my hand. They expressed gratitude. One seasoned diplomat, a man with many years of service, said quietly, "That is the inquiry we all should have been making for decades. But we were fearful. We required their loans, their assistance, their validation. Your courage is a reminder. Do not lose it. The world needs it." And that, my friends, is the profound tragedy. We have representatives who are aware of the reality. They know we are being exploited. They know the structure is engineered to maintain our dependency. They understand that a genuine ethical economics, or any system rooted in fairness instead of usury, would revolutionize the global south. But they are caught in a network of debt and dependency, too intimidated to speak out, too frightened to contest the status quo. This is why alternatives are crushed. Not due to noble intentions. The established powers have never been genuinely concerned with the lives of people in developing nations. They act because any viable alternative poses a threat. They dismantle any leader attempting to forge an independent course. They sabotage any effort to construct economic models based on justice rather than extraction. This is why they labor so diligently to keep nations divided, reliant, and in need. But here is what truly frightens them. They dread the day when leaders cease asking for permission. They fear the moment we recall our own values, our human values, and begin building our economies upon those solid foundations instead of the corrupt base of Riba. Envision a world where countries trade without the burden of interest-accruing debt. Envision a world where investment is founded on real partnership and shared benefit, not on predatory lending. Envision a world where financial institutions empower communities rather than entrapping them. Envision a world that declares to the international monetary institutions, "We reject your riba. We will construct a superior alternative." This is achievable. It is not a utopian dream. Ethical finance models provide a viable blueprint. The prohibition of riba is not an archaic rule. It is a safeguard against economic oppression. It is a defense against the exact form of debt servitude that has perpetuated poverty. And its principles are universal. Interest-free financing, equity-based partnerships, investments grounded in real productive enterprise rather than mere speculation. These practices benefit all of humanity. They foster stability, sustainability, and equity. But it demands bravery. It demands leaders who oppose difficult questions even to influential figures. It demands that we stop seeking validation from those who profit from our subjugation. It demands that we build our own institutions, our own frameworks, our own destiny. When I asked that question about riba, my aim was not personal humiliation. It was to unveil a foundational truth. The powerful speak of assistance while upholding the very instruments that perpetuate poverty. They talk of honoring cultures while insisting we engage in systems that transgress our deepest ethical principles. His silence was not an individual failure. It is the silence of an entire establishment that cannot morally justify itself, that cannot defend its exploitation, that cannot respond to fundamental questions of justice. We do not need their permission to build a just world, but we no longer require their answers. We require our own fortitude. We require our own resolve. We require our own dedication to create alternatives even when they intimidate us, even when they attempt to halt us, even when they label us as radicals or threats to the established order. My friends, I am frequently asked why I am so direct, why I confront powerful entities so openly, why I accept risks that others shun. This is the reason. Because somebody must pose the necessary questions, somebody must voice the necessary truths, somebody must be prepared to confront the powerful and demand accountability. That leader could not answer my question about an ancient ethical principle because the truth is too damaging for him to utter. But we can speak it. We can embody it. We can build our future upon foundations of justice instead of exploitation, on ideals rather than pure profit, on courage rather than fear. That day, when the room went quiet and the statesman dodged my question, a shift occurred. Not in him. He is too entrenched in the system to transform. But in me, and in some of the others present, we perceived clearly that the powerful are vulnerable. We saw that these individuals who lecture us, who profess to comprehend our realities, who dictate how we should manage our nations, they cannot even address basic questions about the structures they uphold. We do not need their endorsement. We do not need their consent. We need our own bravery to build something superior. True liberation, economic, political, and spiritual, will not originate from those who benefit from our subordination. It will come from us, when we are courageous enough to reject their riba, their exploitation, their entire system of control. This is the real struggle of our era. Not conflict, but the endeavor to establish justice in the face of structures designed to preclude it. The endeavor to ask questions that unsettle the comfortable. The endeavor to demand answers that reveal their hypocrisy. He could not answer my question, but we can answer it with our deeds, with our decisions, with the future we choose to create. May we find the wisdom to pursue justice. May we find the strength to persevere. May we find the courage to become truly free. And if this truth resonates with you, help this message reach further by liking this video and following the journey here on Winds of Thought.